just wanted to start by mentioning that we have a we have some materials for the conference that various speakers have provided, and so we have these on our download server, and it's download laststop.com/beta. Lasso Developer Conference is the path once you're in there, and the username is LDC and the password is Amsterdam. So, and there's some files up there now, and hopefully we'll get some more files from other speakers, and also like by the end of the conference we'll upload like some of the slide presentations and things, so that if you want to go back through what people presented, we'll have some of that too. So I can just ask me if you didn't get that, and I'll repeat it after the conference. So I'm going to talk this morning about email methods, and just some kind of tips and techniques for getting the most out of email tags. Most of my talk this morning applies to Lasso 8.5, and it will apply equally well to Lasso 9, but there's nothing real Lasso 9 specific in it. I just want to start by saying I live in Manchester, Washington, and I've been programming with Lasso since '97, since before I joined Blue World. And I just thought it was funny, somebody yesterday was talking about holding a box of Lasso and a box of Tango, and I think we downloaded the demos, both, and Lasso was the one which we were able to serve web pages with, that did things we wanted them to do really quickly. So I'm glad I went with Lasso as well. And I just wanted to include a picture of Rocco, mostly. Just these are my dogs, who couldn't be here today. So yeah, so I'm gonna touch on these topics, and we'll just see. We started a little late, so I don't know if I'll get to the end, but yeah, so I'll just set it on. So yeah, first I want to talk about just some of the settings. This is primarily in Lasso 8.5, but we get some questions about email settings. I feel like there's some confusion, particularly about I get the versions. There's been so many versions I get a little confused. But we introduced direct send email, and it's like when you introduce something new, it's kind of assumed that it's better than than the older version. But in the case of so a lot of people wonder whether they should be relaying through a local SMTP server or if they should be using direct send, and so. I just want to touch on that briefly, and basically we recommend sending through a local relay if possible, which is that's the way Lasso's worked since whatever version it could first send email. Basically allows, it's like the people who write the SMTP server software, they do a good job of keeping really up to date on the most recent changes to email serving. Although the protocols for email are really old, particularly the anti-spam software, there's this kind of arms race between spam, spammers and anti-spam, and so there's just a lot of really interesting things that SMTP servers do to thwart, automatic email sending, and that's something in particular that email servers are very good at handling because they need to ensure good deliverability. And we deal with that a lot in Lasso as well. We've done a lot of tweaks to our email sending to ensure that it works with as many SMTP servers as possible. But it's always a good idea to sort of go with the people with who have the best handle on things. And in that case, it's the people who actually write SMTP servers. So if you use a local SMTP server, then you could get improved deliverability because they're better able to handle this kind of the arms race, and it also it offloads the work off your web server. It can take many hours sometimes to send an email. It waits, it's just idle, but but often, you want your web server serving web pages as fast as possible, and you may have a completely different machine that's your mail server. That division of labor can be good. So why do we introduce direct send though? In particular, we introduce direct send because we find a lot of customers simply can't use a local relay. And often this is because we have a lot of customers at universities, and I feel like Lasso at times it appeals to people who work for places where the IT department is kind of locked down, but then they're able to run Lasso on the servers that they control themselves. And but sometimes for things like mail deliverability, you need to actually work through the school. So direct send basically allows you to bypass the local SMTP servers. And it's also very useful if people like to do they like to do like email blasts, and they like to know whether those messages have been delivered or not. And so you can do closing the loop on email can be difficult, where you want to know whether the message was delivered and opened or not. And so basically most SMTP servers report mail delivery failures by sending you an email. So potentially you could check that email with the pop tags or something, but if you want to know whether the message successfully made it to the end SMTP server, it's a lot easier if you send that direct through Lasso. So I think those are the two primary reasons to use direct send. Simply if you have to, and if you really need to know whether the messages ended up at the right place or not. Now let's touch on a couple other settings real quick. We added, in the older versions of Lasso, every time you send an email, you'd specify the host, the SMTP host that you would send through. And we still allow that in the newer versions of Lasso, but now we also have configuration in Lasso administration. And so I always recommend using there's an ignore host param option, and that disables the host parameter for every email send tag, and it always sends using the settings in Lasso admin. And I think for the majority of server administrators, you always want to send your mail either to your local relay or use direct send. So usually if you still have host parameters on your email send tags, it's just a recipe for having a problem if you have to go in and do a find or replace to find like these old parameters. So this option just allows you to ignore the old parameters. And then just two gotchas on the email queue. Like everything, the email queue is a database. I think like administrators don't always think of kind of the internal information to Lasso as being data, like some of their other databases. So if you choose, there's an option in Lasso to retain successful messages, and this actually basically keeps every message that you've sent remains in the email queue, and it can be great for debugging, checking to see what messages Lasso has sent. But if you leave that on all the time, the email queue can get very large, and like any database, once there's a lot of records in there, just inserts start slowing down, and the searches for sending start slowing down. So sometimes if you in support or whatever, if you find when you go and look at like their admin that those databases are huge. So it's worth checking. And then also we have an option to retain error messages, which you generally want to do in both email and also in the general error logging, but it is good to clear those out periodically. I always think too, it's like if error messages are being logged a lot, it's best to figure out why, and not leave it until the error database has grown very large.